Yep.
Um, I'm Molly. I am Lallemmand's East Coast Technical Sales Manager. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I've known Matt for a couple years.
Yeah.
I would say we were casual friends, acquaintances.
That's it.
Know each other.
Wow.
Huh?
It's really important relationship here.
He's in my well, like, you know.
I'm honored and touched. We're going to be talking to you today about Desperate Measures 2, which is a collaboration we did here at Lazarus Brewing Company for the Craft Brewers Conference 2020, which was canceled in person, but we decided to go ahead with the beer and get it out to you guys, the consumer. So we're looking forward to talk about what we did, what we were striving to achieve, and how this collaboration came together. Molly had visited us back in March, I think, whenever we
for the beer,
did the collaboration. Molly was kind enough to join us and brew with us. We had a very fun day of shenanigans, and we also made beer. So great success.
Yeah.
So, Molly, can you tell us a brief history of Lallemand?
Yes, so Lallemand is a Canadian company. It's a Canadian family-owned company. It's in its third generation right now, and it originally started as a baking yeast company. Its primary product was baking yeast, and then it has since now has about 13 different divisions or business units, all the way from like pharmaceuticals to pet care to oenology, all dealing with dried yeast nutrition and bacteria.
And Matt, do you want to tell us a brief history about Lazarus?
Lazarus Brewing Company was founded back in 2016. So, man, wow, seems like a long ago now. But yeah, founded by Christian Kreider, was established here on the east side of Austin, Texas, where we are currently. We are a mid-sized brew pub by classification, and we do basically an array of Mexican street food, various beers, coffee, and a few other things. So we've kind of become a staple on the east side lately, have kind of developed into our own little spot here and have a solid consumer base that hopefully you guys are joining us for this talk, and really appreciate all your support through the current situations we've been working through.
State of the world.
Yeah. Excited about the reception, at least for this beer series that we've been doing. Super excited to release this to you guys, as we think it's pretty special, and we'll cover it a lot more today.
So why did you guys choose, so why did Lazarus choose Lallemand, and why did Lallemand choose Lazarus for the CBC collaboration?
I mean, I can kind
of... I don't know. I don't really like Matt all that much, so he was kind of like my last choice, if I have to be honest.
All right, this call's done.
No, I mean, Matt is like, he's a great guy, and I feel like he's one of my closest friends in the industry, and also a person that I really look up to. But he just has a wealth of knowledge. So like when you're looking for like a partner to trial new strains with and to give you like really honest feedback, like he's like the perfect person for me in that sense. Like, hey, here's this crazy new strain of ours, tell us what you think, and let's have a conversation, and let's build upon what we think we know about it, but the knowledge that you have with like different hops and fermentation, like let's see what we can create together.
Yeah, this isn't the first time we've worked with Lallemand on some beers. We've actually done a few trials of some new strains that Lallemand was releasing. And that really came out of, I guess, the relationship we have with Molly and Lallemand as a company of, we know what we're going to get is going to be on the cutting edge of the brewing world, and really interesting for us to play around with and give the consumers as well as our other industry partners something unique to try. And this beer came out of that sort of creative side of things, where we really wanted to try something different than what is the normal for hazy IPAs. And it just so happened that a lot of our other partners were asking for this Austin style IPA that we had never actually heard of, being from Austin, which is interesting. But the general gist of an Austin IPA is it's rather unclear. We don't really know what that is, except it should be kind of hazy, hoppy, pretty dry, pretty flavorful. And I think when Molly and I talked about the beer style, it was like, oh, this could be fun to try out with something a little bit different than what is normal for even Austin. So
Yeah.
as we were bringing this together, Molly and I talked a lot, mostly remote, because Molly is in Asheville and we are in Austin.
Raleigh.
Raleigh, I'm sorry, yeah.
It's okay. Same thing.
She's in North Carolina, somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere in
so
Carolina.
Molly being from Raleigh and us being in Austin, it was a little bit hard to meet in person, but Molly was kind enough to come join us and do the beer actually into the fermenter. So we had a fun time developing and still working on this Austin style IPA that we're kind of bringing a various iterations of out to see if we can't find something unique and interesting.
Yeah.
So here is
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
as far as the beer.
Looks so pretty.
Yeah. Looks good on the internet.
And now that we have it in front of us, we have to open it.
It's true. I just want to let all the people out there, know that we sadly haven't gotten Molly her beer yet. It's our fault, so we're working on that as soon as we can. Otherwise,
Right.
she's joining us for this, but
Yes.
yeah, for now we're gonna have
Monday is required.
we're gonna have to have Molly imagine how good it is for the time.
Well, thinking about it right now.
Yeah.
And apparently it's like National Beer Day today. So
Is it really?
I think so.
Whoa. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Where's your
Cheers.
Yeah.
This is I have a cup that says this is not gin, but
Perfect.
Could be.
yeah, it could be gin.
Yeah.
So what yeast strains does Lallemand provide to the brewing industry, and what yeast strains did you use for Desperate Measures collaboration with Lazarus?
Yeah, so we have a variety of yeast strains, mostly ale. We have one lager strain, the Diamond, and a lot of these have been like historic yeast strains, so historic British strains such as like the Windsor and the London, and historic German strains such as our Munich strain. And then we recently started just diving into and exploring what new yeast strains are out there. So we came out with a New England IPA strain called the New England. And then we recently came out with a Kolsch strain and a Voss strain. So Voss, this is from Norway. It's a, please forgive me, it's a Quake strain, one of many different types of this strain. Or this yeast. So this one in particular we found it could dry very well. So all of our yeast and bacteria are dried. So that we were like, oh, this would be fun. And to go with, the idea of an Austin IPA, these are two strains we use the Voss and the Kolsch strain that one I don't think automatically thinks of when they go IPA. So yeah, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the interesting thing about trying to come up with what yeast strains would be great from Lallemand for this beer was Molly had definitely picked out two yeast strains that Kolsch has been traditionally used for some hazy IPAs, and we kind of knew that was a strain that had kind of the components we were looking for to bring out certain hop character from this beer. But the Voss was an interesting one that we had experimented with, and we kind of strategically picked the Voss to do something with that yeast strain that is somewhat irregular as far as fermentation profile goes. And that's basically controlling its temperature, which is generally not something that brewers do. So
Right.
we actually did kind of, I wouldn't say inhibit, but reined in this yeast strain. It's pretty much a monster. It ferments through just about everything, but we wanted to kind of control it and pick and choose what characters we got out of it. And then even strained it a little bit more in the long run by trying to lower the temperature down while it was actively fermenting to let the Kolsch hit its optimal temperature. These two yeast strains have totally different temperatures they like to function at and kind of excel at. And we tried to hit them both just with our processes with really good results. We're super happy with what we got out of it.
Yeah, and along with that, like our cold strain, we test for beta-glucosidase activity, which is an enzyme that's in yeast that can activate biotransformation. And we found out just like through testing our strains that our cold strain actually has a very high amount of this enzyme to activate a form of biotransformation. There are many different types of biotransformation. So that kind of, helped us with the conversation. Okay, if we can control, we have one aspect of control with the VOS, with temperature, and then we add hops and we add this cold strain to sort of start a biotransformation, what's going to happen?
So for those of us that don't know, what is biotransformation and what did you expect from the co-fermentation process?
I'm going to give that one to Matt. He explains it better than I do.
Yeah, I think this is what's interesting about biotransformation. I mean, that word has kind of become a buzzword, but it's a very broad statement. It's basically saying what is actively happening between hops themselves and yeast strains, and what occurs as far as reactions and metabolism with yeast and hop interactions that changes flavor and aroma profiles. So you have these very specific compounds that hops bring in with them, and they're still being detailed. I mean, we're finding out more and more about hops all the time as to what they bring in to a beer, but the science of what yeast does whenever it interacts with these compounds is also pretty new and not, I wouldn't say not well understood, but it's still getting a lot more detail fleshed out on what actually occurs. So it is kind of the forefront of research. It's really interesting to kind of play around with things that haven't been looked at as far as what's possible with these kind of interactions. So when you hear biotransformation, it's literally just a biologic reaction of yeast and hop compounds, or yeast metabolism and hop compounds. Accurate?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And for one specific instance, like yeast have sugars that yeast have enzymes, hops have sugars, and when they react together, it can create a form of biotransformation and release tropical flavors. So that is, I think, the primary one that a lot of people are looking into. We're also looking into different types of biotransformation techniques, because it isn't just like a linear equation. Like, okay, if you add a certain amount, if you add this one yeast strain, and if you add this hop, then you're going to create all these great flavors. There's a lot of different components behind that we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah, and I think that most, and probably you as a consumer, are going to be really interested in what hops we use, and we'll definitely cover that. But I think what's really interesting about this general process is that it's as much hops as it is yeast most of the time. So the yeast actually has a really huge part to play in bringing forward these super fruity, super intense IPAs that a lot of brewers ignore, and we don't want to ignore the yeast and its important impact as far as what's potentially possible. So trying to make a better IPA in general comes with focusing on the yeast as much as the hops, and really selectively picking what you're using in that brew.
Yeah.
Very cool. And now I have all that knowledge.
You do. Everyone else does too.
Yes.
But there's more knowledge to be had.
Knowledge is in his beard too. He just has like knowledge coming in.
Yeah. This is a real statement of why we were so excited about this collaboration, is being able to talk about these things with Molly pretty casually with somebody with that much knowledge base is pretty unique in this industry, to be able to bounce ideas off of kind of constantly and get immediate feedback of, well, this is what I've seen. Molly has a really long history of some excellent experience in the brewing industry. So she's seen and done a lot, which really helps us out a lot to draw on that knowledge.
Yeah. And I was about to say, like, we see each other a lot, like, even though we live in separate, states, we see each other a lot at brewing conferences, and, you're active in the NBA, I'm active in the NBA. So it's like, we have this really great, I think, platform and community connection that, it's awesome.
Which I am. I'm wearing the NBA hat.
You're wearing the hat.
Perfectly timed.
Yes,
For those of you who don't know what Master Brewers of the Americas is, it's a industry organization that is really dedicated to education and knowledge. And it's a fantastic industry-only organization of suppliers, brewers, brewmasters, consultants, the whole bit. And it's a place where you can go to kind of get newest possible research and share ideas to help your own career in the industry.
Yeah.
And what are you excited about in the coming years that's coming from Lallemand, Molly?
So we have released, we just released it last week. It's called Philly Sour, which is another connection with Matt, actually. It is a strain of Lachantia that was discovered by Dr. Matthew Farber and his team at the University of Sciences of Philly. And one of Matt's former coworkers, you and Marissa were a former coworker, is now at Dr. Farber's lab in Philadelphia, Marissa. So she's been playing around with this strain for a long time. And Lallemand, we've been talking with the university for a while, and we finally we formed a licensing agreement where we are able to sell this yeast. So we dried it. It's available now, but it's a first dried Lachantia strain out there, which is kind of interesting. So it's like a wild domesticated yeast, but it produces lactic acid, which you see a lot in sour beers, predominantly in sour beers, and ethanol. So it makes it a really unique strain. It has like a stone fruit, peachy kind of flavor. Marissa made a sour triple with it, which I thought was like one of the best beers I've ever had. Which, like, what do you mean this is good for a triple? So yeah, we have that coming out. Well, that is out, and then we have a Verdant IPA strain coming out from the Verdant Brewery in the UK. It is their house strain that they have given it to us, and we tested it and make sure it could dry really well. And we're getting great feedback. It's a really fantastic strain.
That is exciting. Very cool.
Yeah.
To touch on why Philly Sour is exciting too is for brewers, it's a very big challenge of pitch yeast that will ferment very sour beers in general. And most of the time you have to just kill them off and start fresh every time. And also yeast doesn't produce lactic acid normally, although in this case it does. So this is a really big development to have a yeast strain that produces lactic acid, because usually you use bacteria, which bacteria has a habit of wanting to go everywhere if you don't control it properly. So your yeast
has a habit of being very small.
Yeah, and really they hide extremely well. They're pretty shy.
They do.
But they come out in a big way.
Yes.
So it's really cool to have something that I think as brewers we can control a little bit better and get the attributes we really want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some other yeast strains that you guys are thinking of, or you and Molly can recommend thinking of experimenting with for an Austin or an unclear IPA?
Yeah, where do you want to go with this, Matt? Like, I'm still unclear in the Austin unclear IPA bit, but I like how we use two.
A little bit unclear.
You're really pushing that tagline super hard.
Yep.
I think it's a bit unclear.
It's like the sunset.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It makes you feel like you're watching a sunset. Yeah, I mean, there is, I think as we find out more about the yeast hop interactions, it's kind of a broad category of what yeast strains are out there and available to brewers to be able to kind of focus on these specific compound interactions we're looking for. And I know that, Molly, you've seen a lot of other brewers using various yeast strains for various styles of hazy IPA. And when we say Austin IPA, generally that's what we're talking about. But we're really trying to hone in on bringing you, the drinker, a lot more passion fruit, tropical fruit, intense citrus. I mean, and have something that's very refreshing, drinkable, and consistent, I think is the big key here.
Yeah, it's just understanding, like, the yeast is one part of this component, but, not all yeast have this enzyme that they can activate hop compounds to make really juicy flavors. But even within that enzyme itself, we think, and we're still trying to figure this out, there are background players that, make a very nice IPA, make a really juicy IPA, but it might not necessarily have a high amount of this enzyme. So what exactly is going on there? So there's a lot of stuff that like our lab in Montreal is testing and trying to figure out, and we work really closely with the Shellhammer lab in Oregon State, and also just like, you know, giving yeast to partners, you know, like Matt, and say, hey, you know, here's this, this is what we've seen, what else can we do with it, or what else do you have an idea of something that could be going on here? So
Yeah, I think that's the fun part, or really the
yeah,
interesting part of these kind of collaborations is a lot of it comes out of us communicating about what would you like to see out of this, or what makes these things potentially viable for us, the industry people. And we get one of the first shots at trying to figure out where is this going to be useful, and what a drinker is going to appreciate about this yeast that makes it so unique. So we get to have a lot of fun with just new things out and discovering the whole time. I mean, we're constantly learning, despite I think both of us seeing a lot of things in the industry. There's so much more for us to learn out there that we're just having fun with at this point.
That's very cool. And so when can we expect, or is there a possibility of the next Lallemand Brewing and Lazarus Brewing collaboration?
Well, I think after this video, we're going to have a long talk because, you know, it's just such a hard relationship to keep going.
I knew it. I knew it. I held on as tightly as I could.
No, we're super excited for Philly Sour, especially.
Yeah.
I've been talking to Molly about Philly Sour for a while. We have a lot of plans for some things we would like to do with that yeast strain. So probably our next collab will be something with the Philly Sour at this point. Unless, Molly, you want to go in a totally different direction, which is okay.
No, I mean, we're still learning a lot about the Philly Sour, like the data that we have from the University of Sciences lab. It's great. But there's still, like, even talking to like Marissa and Matt over there, when we were all like, this is wonderful, but then it brings up new questions that we're still wanting to dive into. So it's really great that, like, Matt, you know Marissa really well, and we're all just friends, so we're all like just geeking out over this thing, be like, oh, here, can you play around with this? And she's like, let us know what you think. So yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah. So look for a sour somewhere in the works here in the next couple months, once we can all meet back up in person. You know. Molly, did you get a chance to look at the recipe sheet for this beer too recently? Did I send that over to you, or just the description?
I think you just sent the description. I don't think I looked at the recipe sheet yet.
Yeah, so for you, the drinker, basically, to give you an idea of what we worked with, we did the co-fermentation or the double fermentation with this beer, which was the Kvik and the Kolsch strain. And then the hopping for this was kind of, I mean, we as a company carry a lot of different hops. And I think we're starting to get a little more well-known for having some very random and sometimes archaic, if not a little bit eccentric, hop strains in our inventory. Yeah. We work with suppliers all around the world for our hops. One of the things that I feel like I've been truly blessed to have is these relationships with hop growers all around the world. And we kind of selected a pretty big international incident for hops on this one, which is, I mean, we have hops from Slovenia, being Styrian Dragon. We have Idaho 7, which is a relatively new variety out of Idaho. I think it's been around for like 4 or 5 years now, probably. Yeah. Pretty new. And then New Zealand Cascade, which we really wanted to get some of that lime citrus character out of the New Zealand Cascade. And then Elixir, which is actually, yeah, it's a French hop. We've had Elixir in its experimental form for about 2 years. GS10. Yeah, GS10 is what it was called before Elixir. And we had played around with it in some hop forward beers and found it to be amazingly impactful in what we had done with it. This is one of the first beers we've tried to let it come out to the forefront a lot more. So you do get this really big and intense character of a lot of fruit notes out of this beer. And some of that comes from the Kvik. It has that little bit of a pineapple character naturally. It's one of the esters it produces that provides a nice building block to a lot of these other hop components that are pretty strong passion fruit, tropical fruit. So you're getting sharp citrus, pineapple, a little bit of stone fruit even in there. It gets a little, has some of that pithy citrus character as well. But man, does it drink super easily. A lot of flavor. Really excited about having this beer out to market.
I'm excited. I've not tasted Elixir. No, did I have Elixir when I was over there? Was it a single?
Fleur de lis right out of the tank whenever you were here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which Fleur de lis was destined to be a Desperate Measures release as well, but our consumers drank it too fast. So we sold through it really quickly. So glad you guys enjoyed it. That is Elixir being its own single hop variety or single hop IPA on that one. We're definitely you're gonna see it some more for sure.
Yeah. It's super exciting. I mean, this is like one of the best things about, when I emailed you and was like, oh, can I just see your like hop list? And then I get pages. It's like Christmas. I had to like Google a lot of them, kind of going, what is this one again? Elixir, what?
And what makes this more challenging is that the hop industry has a habit of changing the names of hops sometimes. Yes. So like you'll see a variety come out with a name and you're like, well, what is this hop variety? And look it up and it's like, oh, it was this one before, like last year. And now they just changed the name and that's it. So yeah, we have a pretty good catalog of stuff to play around with, and we're excited to, work on, of course, with some other projects, some of these hops to come out to the front and have our consumers try them out and let us know what they think.
Yeah.
And so when is this coming out?
Desperate Measures 2 will be released this coming Saturday, Father's Day weekend. So Friday, sorry. June 19th is that Friday? Is that the right date? I have totally lost track of what day is what and when and why. So
May,
I'm just,
right?
I think so. Or August.
That's what I thought.
July, I think is where we're at. Somewhere in there. But, so yeah, we're super excited for you guys to come pick it up. It's in 6-packs in 12-ounce cans. So look for it on our shelves in the fridge. Stop by and get your 6-pack. You will not be disappointed.
And go pick up some like nice coffee and tacos too while you're at it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Molly. Yeah, that's
in the spirit of Molly wanting to be here.
Yeah.
Please. This is the first time I was there. I drank like 3 cups of cold brew coffee, and I was like, "What is going on with me?"
Yeah.
That's the first thing I've ever tasted.
Get the jitters.
Yes.
I don't know what we're gonna do with that. I'm gonna have to get some widgets.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can take a lot of info from this and hopefully get more excited for the things that are to come.
Yeah. If you guys want to let Molly know how we did as a collective, I'll be sure to pass on the word and keep her informed of how it's being received. So we're looking forward to you guys trying out the Desperate Measures 2, the Lallemand collab edition. And really looking forward to having Molly back to brew with us again sometime.
I can't wait to, I'm like starting my push-ups already because you're mash time. Oh, I love it. It's amazing.
A pretty cool system in general. So it's pretty fun to have people over and be like, hey, remember when you used to have a brew by hand? Let's do that again.
Brings me back to my hop diving days too. Be like, yeah, I will go in the kettle and like just pick up those hops.
I can't remember. I think Eric actually got the honor of doing the mash time clean out, or did you get in there?
I think he got inside. Eric got the pleasure of dropping each hop one by one.
One by one, yeah.
Very lovingly hand selected. These hops were hand selected by Eric.
He did. He was very careful while weighing those hops out to make sure it was just right, and then putting them in the kettle was like, he was all over it. He did a great job.
He did.
Sadly, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sadly, we couldn't have Eric join us today, but we'll be sure to pass that on to Eric as well next time we see him to let him know how this beer is going and make sure he gets some of that as well. I'll have to send him some off the side to Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
All right, thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you, guys. This is fun.
Yeah, let's do it again sometime.
Yeah. See you guys soon.
See ya.
Bye. Bye.